Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another indie horror spotlight. Today, I have with us, he's a director, and his film is deep into post production right now, and it's called Van Dam. I have with us the director, Derek Garrison. Derek, welcome to the Horror Realm.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Thanks for taking time with us.
It's a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure having you on, man. Listen, tell us a little bit about Van Dam.
So Van Damned is it's a horror comedy, and it's almost so horror comedy that it's a comedy horror. So we're having fun. It's calling upon some of the tropes with some fresh new takes on it. Low budget, indie fare, shot locally in Portland, Oregon, and the ultimate father-son project. My son's an aspiring actor, writer, director himself down in LA. Flew him up, and we were excited to make a project this summer. So it's a father and son project first and foremost, but we're pretty excited about it.
Awesome. Now, when it comes to a horror comedy, especially the comedy aspect, it's kind of hard to do a comedy movie right now. You don't see that many even horror comedies or comedies anymore because the way culture is right now, you kind of don't want to offend anyone. Was that a challenge that you ran into?
Not really. I mean, I get what you're saying. For sure, that is a challenge. We're leaning into hoping to find that audience that's looking at something quirky. So it's not it very unlikely to find folks that might be offended. More likely, the struggle may be just like, oh, it wasn't our particular brand of humor, but we're being able to avoid some of the themes that you're talking about. If anything, this is a film that makes fun of people taking themselves too seriously, people's struggles in the world. So we're hoping to find an audience like that resonates. Of like, I know somebody like that where people are in their own heads even a bit too much. So we're pretty confident in the comedy. We've got a stand-up comedian is one of the actors in it, and he said this is sharp. This is some smart stuff, smart comedy. So we're hoping that we find an audience that way.
Love it. Now, what was it like to have your son on the set as well?
Dude, it was awesome. It's a lot of fun. We'll watch a movie every couple of weeks together, like the Netflix watch party, and we've been able to bond over film. I got four boys, and for some of them it's been athletics, for others it's been music, and with this son, not really into the athletics as much, and so film has been a bond. So to be able to get on set and really work hard to make honestly an ultra low guerrilla budget kind of a thing. A lot of learning, a lot of fun memories. We had done short films before. We had tried some different feature length things that are kind of stories in and of themselves and it didn't all come together. It didn't end. So this one's like the culmination of a lot of fun little projects we've ever done since he was a little boy, and again, it's something that in the future, it's like our kids can watch it, the grandkids can watch it, that's the time that your dad and your grandpa did something that was pretty funny. So it's been really heartwarming, exciting, fun, hard work. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
I said that has to be a heartwarming feeling. I mean, to
Yeah,
you share your passion with one of your children, and they
yeah,
have the same passion as you. So I mean, that's always amazing.
yeah. No, it's been great.
Now, production wise, working in indie, you working with a small budget. What are some challenges that you ran into that some filmmaker with some individuals out there who think about making their first film should know about?
Well, anticipate that you can study it out, and you can plan for it, and that there will still be a dozen things each day that you didn't account for or that just came up. And so, but that should never, the fact that there will be things that are thrown at you and you figure it out, you can plan for a lot of things. And so we, very detailed notes in the pre-production process. And my background is writing, is screenwriting. And so I was able to go into it and really write with budget in mind, and kind of, whether it was combining characters or keeping things more contained, or just some little writing tricks to keep the pace moving, keep the humor going, keep the tension building. I was able to write a script that that save some money, to be honest. And then I think some other things, the limited location idea, we were able to shoot this. We've got some property here in the Pacific Northwest that, depending on how big your frame is, can look much bigger than it really was. And so we're able to accomplish that of its limited location, that it's literally shot in our backyard, in our neighbor's backyard. But that looks pretty forested because it's the Pacific Northwest. So you kind of write to the available locations that you have is a good idea. And then I'd say the other thing is this was a little bit of a cheat, but I cast it so well, found some really great talent, that it was basically able to kind of build like an ensemble cast as much as any one or two leads, because I knew I wouldn't have enough days. They wouldn't have enough days because they've got day jobs, and I wasn't able to have a budget to pay them well enough to say no to a day job or whatever. So I had to be mindful of that actor is only going to be available 4 days in a row. You're not going to get an 8 days in a row with them. You're going to get 4 and 2. But I also didn't want to have it be a weekend warrior type of chip it away, which is one way of doing it. But I didn't want to have it be that way because my own day job wouldn't allow for it. And like I was mentioning, my son, he's down in LA now. I had to fly him up for his part in it, and another great actress from Seattle. So it's a lot of moving pieces, but you limit the locations. Don't be afraid of an ensemble cast. That may help you, so that as an independent, you can still feel bigger than maybe your budget really is. You can make it feel bigger, but at the end of the day, a lot of it comes down to writing and pre-production of like plan the heck out of that thing. You'll still have surprises, but there's a lot of planning. My day job helps with that. Pretty skilled at that, and my hobby of screenwriting pays off. So I guess uniquely prepared to do something this low of a budget.
And I've heard that from so many indie horror screenwriters or screenwriters in general that you have to write your screenplay according to your or whoever the filmmaker's budget. Like you cannot have somebody flying in air and this person's working with a $5,000 or $10,000 budget.
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely.
Now, when it comes to the kills in the movie, did you decide to use practical effects?
Yeah, we that came to a budget decision too. Is we had a connection with practical effects, Trista, and she did great work for us, and that became more affordable, and it just looked cooler.
It does.
It just looked better, and so it's like it was more available. And a lot of times on a thing that's this small, you're also liking to bring to set some positivity, some willingness of like, I mean, we joked about it, but everybody should have got a PA credit in addition to whatever it was they were doing, because there was a lot of helping one another out, a lot of pitching in, and Trista was right there, perfect of just stepping in and helping out beyond the hair, the makeup, the practical effects, a lot of blood, real team effort. But yeah, we went practical effects all the way.
Now, why do you feel like so? Like I grew up in the '80s. I grew up in the golden age of horror, and the practical effect was something that was big. Sam Raimi used it in the John Carpenter and Halloween movies. Practical effect was huge.
Yeah,
and now I feel like we starting to get into that CGI. But I've also seen it in indie horror. Like I feel like some indie horror filmmakers feel like they have to use CGI. Why do you think they feel so determined to use CGI compared to going back to the old indie horror roots of practical effects?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. It could be. I mean, this is a theory that or an idea that I've got with any genre. In that, I mean, my writing is usually crime thrillers is what I love to do the most, and then comedy. But I think potentially, I don't. This is just an idea. Potentially, the world is getting smaller in some fields, and it's not necessarily getting smaller in other fields. That is to say, CGI and the advance of technology, and this even gets into the conversation around AI in general, but in that the CGI world is maybe more attainable to an artist or a creative or a collaborator wherever. a filmmaker might have a broader catalog of creative partners to help achieve whatever it is they want their vision. To bring somebody on set with those practical effects and the expertise, they might not have those connections. So the cool thing is, independently, here I am in Portland able to make a film. And so I've got some resources. There's artists in Portland, there are artists in Seattle. We had talked to an outfit in Seattle that was maybe going to help, but we found the Portland one to be in our budget and we liked working with her. Vancouver, BC is not too far away. LA is not too far away, but I'm still having to bring somebody in. But if I'm somewhere smaller as an independent filmmaker, following the advice of Tarantino or Robert Rodriguez of like, you just got to make something, you just got to make something. So if I'm in the middle of nowhere, that CGI becomes more appealing to me because it's attainable. I'm not flying in some stranger from New York to do practical effects. So I think it comes down to there's more CGI out there to choose from to achieve your vision, and sadly there's not people willing to go to the middle of nowhere to do the practical effects all the time for an unproven indie filmmaker. I think it's just the nature of supply and demand.
And that is kind of sad. I mean, you know, I know, like, I live on the East Coast, and you know, there's tons of practical effect artists on the East Coast, but like you said, are they going to go to Portland, Oregon,
Right.
for indie movie? So,
Yeah.
I totally agree. So, right now, you know, indie horror is booming, and not even when it comes to, you know, on a small level, but even in the big level in theaters. You know, Terrifier 3 was an indie horror movie,
Right.
made $30 million, number one in the box office. Do you think that this theme is going to continue on in the next couple of years?
Well, I maybe I mean, it's such a the reason again I'd not really like, horror is not my main genre that I write in, but it's certainly accessible and it certainly seems to find an audience. And to me, I feel like there are good horror movie, there are interesting horror movies, and then there's a lot of things that are not that good or interesting to me. And that might be true of drama also, and so I think that it could continue to be the way, but I do think that people will kind of get tired of it. I mean, and I don't know if you want to talk too much about these, but you mentioned Terrifier, and then I saw Heart Eyes, and Heart Eyes did a good job of being a horror comedy and almost making fun of themselves.
Yes,
but I don't know how many times they can keep going back to that well of making fun of yourself either before it's like, well, you kind of that was a joke. You already did it. Like, I'm sure there's a sequel. Megan has a sequel. Yeah. Probably. I mean, how many times can you turn it into a franchise and really be onto something? You know, you think back to Final Destination or Halloween, or like, there's proven that you saw. In fact, a place where we'll probably premiere Van Damme, they're doing Saw the musical, like the play Saw the musical, the unauthorized musical of Saw. So obviously, if you can hook people, they'll keep coming back. So I'm sure that will be some, but I'm sure that there will be a lot of filmmakers that try thinking they're going to make something that could have a sequel and could really find that audience, that will not find that audience. I'll say without shame, Van Damme is primed to have a Van Damme 2 and a Van Damme 3. Like, it could be, you could easily see, I can totally see it. And as I'm writing, is like, that's in the sequel. That's the origin story. Like, I can see it, but it doesn't matter if I don't find an audience, then it's like, I'll move on to the next thing, because there are many stories to tell. There are many scary stories to tell. So maybe it will.
Yeah, because I mean, horror it goes up and down. So, you know, at every 5-10 years, and like, I feel like we're at a high right now, and usually when there's a high, there's a down is right around the corner. I hope not,
right?
But, you know,
well, and I also I would add, as goes reality, like, sometimes when there's enough scary things in reality,
yeah,
you don't need that movie to be that escape, to plant that seed of fear, because it's like, well, I could just look at my neighborhood, I'm scared, right? So it may depend too on how things are going locally, how things go nationally, how things go in the world. Like, what is the thing that creates fear and interesting stories about fear and horror? So I don't know. I mean, I guess I would hope for society that horror continues to be awesome, because it would mean that real life is not that scary. We need a
Yes,
movie. We need Terrifier. We need Saw. We need, whatever. So
I totally agree.
yeah.
Now, all right, Derek, listen, I'm a huge John Claude Van Damme fan.
Okay.
Did you use his name? Were you thinking his name in mind when you came up with the title
Well,
of this
that's a
movie?
great question. That's a great question, Travis. Our movie stars a character whose initials are JCVD, but it stands for Judo Chopping Violent Dude. So in no way, shape, or form are we saying that this is a movie about Jean-Claude Van Damme. Now, does it happen to be about an action star who's washed up seeking solace in the woods? Yes. Is there reference to Belgian paramilitary boots? Absolutely. Is his initial similar? Sure. But is it about Van Damme? I don't know. That would be a hard thing to prove. That's a great question that you have.
Thank you. Yes. As soon as I saw the title, I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know if you can see it. That John Claude Van Damme is on the wall behind me. I'm a
I thought
huge John Claude
I
Van Damme
saw
fan.
in a previous episode. I knew that
Yes,
this dude will
I'm a
get it.
I'm a huge Van Damme fan. So as soon as you sent me the title, I was like, oh, I wonder
Mission
if this is
accomplished. Then it
yes,
worked. Then it worked. That's
yes.
great.
All right, Derek. Listen, I'm gonna ask you three random horror questions. These are your personal opinion. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
All right. The first one. Who is on your Mount Rushmore or horror villains?
Mount Rushmore of horror villains. Okay. These may be a little weird. I would go with I'll save that one for last, because it may be a surprise of, like, I hadn't thought of that, or it might be like, oh, a lot of people thought of that. I would say uh The Thing, whatever The Thing was. I'd say The Thing.
Hmm.
I would say Samara from The Ring. I thought was pretty scared to crap. That was pretty cool. Um, I would go. This is probably more thriller than horror, but it's still, to me, it was is creepy. It's creepy. Was Rutger Hauer, um, and it was him versus C. Thomas Howell. For some reason, I'm forgetting the name of it. The Hitcher.
The Hitcher. I love the Hitcher.
The
And
Hitcher. So Rutger
it's a
Hauer.
horror film. That was amazing.
I go Rutger Hauer as the Hitcher, and then my last one, ultimate villain in a horror movie, the shark from Jaws.
The Shark for Jaws.
Yeah.
By the way, good one with the Hitcher, Rucker House. It's in my top 5 favorite horror films, and
Yeah.
I'm sad that they did a reboot that was horrible.
Yeah, I skipped that.
Yeah. All right, second question. What was the first horror movie that you saw that really scared the shit out of you?
Well, I go back to Jaws. My dad, he worked. He was a high school educator, and one summer, a buddy of his gave him, "Here's a box of movies kids can watch over the summer." And Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 2001, Star Wars, a bunch of other stuff, kind of 70s and 80s movies, which you'll appreciate. And you watch those, but then I got a hold of Jaws, and that summer I watched, I kid you not, I watched Jaws 73 times in a summer. And so that was the one. I mean, that was part of why I love movies, was that one summer where amongst the movies in the box of movies was Jaws, and I couldn't get enough of just different scenes and character and stuff. And I was pretty young. I mean, I must have been like 10 is all or something, but just nothing to do in the summer, and was allowed to watch it. So Jaws was probably the beginnings of learning about fear, but also learning about, if you think about Jaws, just the different ways that Chief Brody versus the marine biologist versus Quint, and how they handle fear. And it's just like, these are 3 different dudes. It's all man versus nature, but they're all handling it in kind of different ways. And even as a 10-year-old, kind of smart enough to see the differences and kind of get a kick out of, well, fear is different for that guy than it is for that guy. And then let alone the victims and the people that get eaten, the different victims in the buildup of the story. So I'd say Jaws, first one, and very lasting impact.
A menacing horror villain. I
Absolutely.
agree. And the final question: what is one horror movie that everybody loves, and you're like, I don't, I don't, I don't like it. I don't see why everybody loves this movie so much.
Huh. A horror movie that everybody loves. It was probably the second or third movie that I saw. My sister, and we should have gotten in trouble. She should have gotten in trouble for showing it to me because she was older than me and should have known better. And then I watched it with. I told you I watched movies with my son. We'll watch a movie every couple weeks together, and he wanted to see the sequel to this movie, but I'm just not. And it's weird because I'm doing horror comedy. And I get why it was cool, and I get why it is what it is. I'm not all that into the Evil Dead, and I'm certainly not into Evil Dead 2 and Army. I
Really?
get what it was, but I don't know. It's just I think there's I don't know. I mean, again, it was a different time, so it's easy to
Mhm.
critique it. I was scared the first time I saw Evil Dead, but I don't know. I'm not really into. I think it's a little overrated, a little bit much, maybe.
See, I like Evil Dead. I like the original one, and I like Part 3 because it is completely different horror
Yeah,
comedy. I was never a fan of Part 2.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and I'm not that big of a fan of the remakes. They're good, but I'm not a huge fan. But the original and Army of Darkness, those are the two
Yeah.
that I would put on my list. All right, Derek, where can one find you, my friend?
Well, for right now, Triggerfish 15. That's we haven't unveiled. We're just like this little movie, this little engine that could. Hopefully, we haven't even done like a web page or whatnot. But Triggerfish, like a gun and a fish 15. That's where I try to on Instagram try to start to build and start to connect with other creatives out there within Threads and Instagram. So Triggerfish 15 is a good way. I'm going to keep trying. I again appreciate being on the podcast to try to build that audience, and then we'll probably release this thing. We'll do our premiere here live in Portland in the spring, and then hopefully get it out there somewhere this summer. And appreciate anything you can do to support it. But yeah, Triggerfish 15 is the place for now. I'd love to connect with anybody, viewers, horror fans, creatives, filmmakers. I'm all about it's collaborative creation. It's awesome.
I love it, brother. Listen, everybody, keep on the lookout for Van Damme. It's not by John Claude Van Damme, but it's similar.
There we go. Exactly. You got it.
Yes. Everyone, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and that is Derek Garrison. We'll see you next time. Take care.